Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. I'm Jeffrey Burke. I'm so glad you're back. Today we're going to have another great show for you. And like I've been telling you, many of you have been following on my radio show for 4 decades, and this is a new platform, and I'm enjoying every minute of it because I'm able to revisit some of the most amazing minds in our industry, talk about new things, changes that have happened, new technology, new delivery systems, and all that wonderful stuff. So today, I'm telling you, you're going to enjoy this. My guest today is Chris Kilham, known as the Medicine Hunter, also an author, educator, and a yogi. The founder of Medicine Hunter Incorporated, Chris has conducted medicinal plant research and sustainable botanical sourcing in over 45 countries. Chris works with companies to develop and popularize traditional plant-based food and medicinal products into market successes. These include ashwagandha, kava, maca, rhodiola, schizandra, tamanu oil, cat's claw, dragon blood, ayahuasca, and hundreds of other plants. Chris also works to bridge worlds, regularly sharing information about other cultures through presentations and media. The New York Times calls Chris part David Attenborough and part Indiana Jones. Help me welcome my guest. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Jeffrey. Thanks so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. We're having an incredible heat wave here, by the way. I'm melting. So if I start to get all wet and drippy, it's because it's hot here.
Well, we're in Las Vegas, and we're going to be about 108 today. But it's a dry heat, as they tell us.
Right.
So great to have you. I'm an avid follower, a big fan, and I was talking to you earlier about your book, Tales from the Medicine Trail. I've had it. You signed it for me in the year 2000. I've read it so many times, and much of the information is still very applicable today. But I thought we'd come from a different angle today and maybe talk about. This is on my mind. I was actually talking with someone about a week or so ago. I said, isn't it amazing how we in the United States are ahead of the world in so many different areas? But when it comes to holistic health and natural health and using the earth and using the plants that are presented to us, we learn about something, and in our mind, we think it's brand new. But in other parts of the world, it could be 100 or 1,000 years old. And it's like we're the last ones to know.
Well, there are 50,000 known medicinal plants in the world. So let's say lots and lots and lots of them have been used for 1, 2, 3, 4,000 years by people, all over the place. It is actually impossible for folks to be familiar with them all. And that's why we keep coming up with treasures. I learned long ago that a plant, however beneficial, doesn't really do well in the market here unless it has an advocate company or companies. Okay. When kava really got rocking in 95, I was one of the people early on in that. And there were a few of us involved with different companies, and we were full on about kava. And we drove a lot of stories about it, and we advocated, and we got media, and that really helped kava to grow. And I think that if you have something, I encounter plants out there that are astonishing in their effects, but they don't really have advocates. So they kind of go wanting in the market. And I think that's also the fact that, let's face it, people get hit with 1,500 or so different things every day that somebody wants them to buy. Whatever it is, whether it's, a new way of doing ginkgo or electric underwear. I mean, there's something for everybody out there. So, it's hard to inform everyone about this vast world of botanical remedies and superfoods and spices and the things that you and I play in.
And to your point, I appreciate that. And they say that we only use a very small portion of our brain through our life. And I think we probably only use a very small portion of what the earth provides for us. And I do agree that, without that push behind it, it does make it a pretty big uphill, battle.
Well, You mentioned a funny thing about the supposed 7% use of our brain. It's just not true.
Mm-mm.
It's that for cognition, for certain types of thinking, we use a small portion of our brains. But we know, for example, with work that's being done, for example, at Johns Hopkins University with psilocybin, that when a person takes something like that, a psychedelic, the entire brain lights up. So, in fact, the old saw that we use a small portion of our brains really refers to for specific purposes.
Mm.
It's just like you see labels on supplements, and I know this is vexing to all of us. The FDA has not approved this as a drug, is the part of the phrase that doesn't get in there. So, yeah, anyway, I think we use the whole brain, but we use different dimensions of our cranial capacity according to the state that we're in.
Thank you. I love that. That was beautiful clarity. And I think we all want to be as healthy as we possibly can do. I mean, I think what I've learned over the years is that the want to is always there, but sometimes the actual protocol of doing it and actually sticking to something for a long period of time is where we have a little bit of a hard time. So let's talk about herbs. Let's talk about what's new, maybe some new things coming our way, maybe some new things that you'd like to bring to the audience. I think it'd be great.
Well, I'll tell you a botanical that I've sort of been banging the gong for a few years, but it doesn't really have a big advocate yet, and that is Schizandra berry. Schizandra comes from northern China. I've spent time there in the Schizandra fields during harvest. It's an amazing thing. And it's called Wu Wei Zhe, which means 5-flavor berry. In traditional Chinese medicine, the ideal scenario is when you have what they call all the 5 elements in balance and harmony. And Schizandra berry is a 5-element botanical. Okay, it is sweet, sour, bitter, pungent, and salty all at the same time. It's the weirdest thing. I was in China, oh gosh, I don't know, it was in the late 90s, I guess, and I was at a dinner and I bit into something in a duck stew, and it was this soft round thing, and this like shot of different flavors went across my mouth. It was frankly very confusing. And I said to the person next to me, "What is that?" I said, "Oh, that's Schizandra."
Okay.
And Schizandra is a powerful adaptogen. In human studies, it shows great benefit for enhancing endurance and strength and stamina and mental clarity and athletic performance and a lot of things. But it doesn't have somebody really driving behind it the way I think it could and should. So I would say that at some point, somebody's going to come along and do kind of the big thing with Schizandra. But it hasn't happened yet. And I keep hoping that we will see that because it's remarkably beneficial. I mean, you can see on Amazon, you can get a lot of packets of dried Schizandra berries. And you can, make tea out of those, and it's actually quite tasty. But somebody's going to do some rock solid concentrate extraction that we haven't seen kind of break through yet in the market. And then I think Schizandra will, like ashwagandha, like Panax ginseng, like rhodiola rosea, become a much, much better known adaptogen.
It's like today we're seeing so much on ashwagandha. And I actually am talking to people today and I'm actually teaching them about ashwagandha and they'd never even heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how I know in your travels around the world, ashwagandha is a staple of so many different communities around the world. And over here, I mean, it's actually really, really very visible today.
Well, yeah, and that to a great extent due to Ixorial, the company in India that makes KSM 66 extract. They have an enormous amount of money. They have 5 remarkable, identical manufacturing facilities for this extract that they make. They have vast acreage of ashwagandha. And so they determined, and they sponsor every trade show that there is, they determined that they really wanted to be leaders in ashwagandha, and they've managed to do that. Mm-hmm. And this isn't the only case that we've seen like this, but it's certainly one of the rare few. You have, of course, you have the Korean Ginseng Commission. There's Korean ginseng everywhere. Gas stops, convenience stores, health food stores, online, all over the place. That's an example of a lot of resources poured into something. Also another adaptogen. But yeah, ashwagandha is very big now. And I spent 6 years working with KSM 66 and being in the field a lot. And I really enjoyed spending time out there with the women who harvest, and also just, seeing how this fits into India's system of Ayurvedic medicine, which, as you know, is 5,000 years old. And, ashwagandha is sort of, they call it the king of herbs. And out of 7,500 plants that are used in Ayurveda, that's high praise.
Very. A question comes up for me, and I thought, while I have you today, this comes from one of my followers, but they said, if I ever get to do a show with you, to ask you, do you feel that the most success is gained when using herbs by using them individually or by using them in synergistic blends?
Well,
I know
both are totally valid.
Okay.
I don't know that it's an either or proposition. Sometimes I'll just take a slug of ginseng extract and it's great. Sometimes I'll do ginseng, schizandra, rhodiola, and chaga together. It's great. Not that my experience settles the matter, but we know that for thousands of years, people have used a lot of combinations of herbs. And also, I see in my travels people using an herb. One of my favorite botanicals is cat's claw from the Amazon. Profound anti-inflammatory. I'm sort of glad it's not as big as turmeric because there are sustainability issues with it, but it's every bit as good as turmeric for inflammation. And often people will take some of that inner bark of the cat's claw vine, stick it in a glass of water, just regular room temperature water. Let it sit overnight. They get up in the morning, the water is that kind of darker tannic color, and they drink it. And that alone is sufficient to initiate a very good anti-inflammatory effect. So it depends entirely. I don't, sometimes you just want a cup of ginger tea.
I answered it exactly the same way. So yeah. I really wanted to see what you thought, because and it also is individual.
Sure.
People respond differently. Some people respond better to individual, maybe better to a blend. So, I just, and another question that I have the master here, so I want to know, do you recommend taking your herbs with or without food, or does it matter?
Well, it makes a difference how and when you're doing it. A good example, ginger tea, it's very good after a meal because it aids digestion, but you can have it in the middle of the day with nothing else. If you're taking, say, supplements in capsules or something like that, I think it's really a matter of what's convenient and what will keep you on a regular and consistent program. So if it's, always after breakfast or whatever, that's fine. There are some botanicals, and turmeric is a good example, that require certain agents from food to be better absorbed. In the case of turmeric, it's fats in the diet. So, and now a number of turmeric or curcumin products are enrobed in phospholipids or some kind of, essential fat that will enable them to be better absorbed. But so there are some things that, I think taking turmeric, for example, or curcumin on top of a meal, that's really smart. Ginkgo, I don't think it matters. Peppermint, however you take it, maybe you're taking it to relieve, an upset stomach, then it's probably going to be after a meal. So it's all over the place. I don't think there's any specific should.
When I first started in the industry, it seemed like the mentality around herbs back then, 40 some years ago, was that they are medicine and used as medicine and only should be used when necessary.
Right.
And it's so different today because I use a lot of herbs every single day and they're just part of my daily, healthy regimen. I'm using them for today, tomorrow, and down the road.
Right. Well, and in point of fact, most herbs can be just great aids to health. We come from a medical mentality of broke and fix. You're sick, let's give you something.
Yep.
And that's often very valid, but not always. And what we have to kind of redo in our minds is utilizing what we can from nature to stay healthy. And if you consider something like traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, they're very focused on staying healthy, maintaining health, achieving a particular high status of body and mind harmony. And then, yes, when there are problems, going into treatment. But the preferable scenario is to keep people healthy in the first place.
True. No, that's it's very, very true. And, I think that sometimes with the mentality, and I guess we could blame it on our schedules and being so busy and the amount of stress and all the things that are out there. A lot of us, I'm guilty sometimes myself. We put ourselves way back on the back burner, with a lot of coulda, shoulda, wouldas, and all of a sudden everything happens. And then we get that awakening that we should have been doing something and we weren't. And that either gets us going in the right direction or it doesn't.
Living in balance is a daily
Yes.
thing. Sometimes it's like you're in a state of grace, you're in flow, it's all going well. Sometimes it's like every step is difficult. That's just life. Yeah. That's just how we're put together in the circumstances in which we live. And hopefully our experiences with being well, if we have them, are good enough that they act as a real incentive to keep that foremost in our activities. Because intent is one thing, but then, as you know, following through, making sure that you get the exercise, that you drink the clean water, that you don't eat food that isn't good for you, that you take the supplements that help you, that's something you just plain have to engage yourself in. You can't just think about it.
No, that's very true. How do you see mushrooms changing the face of our field? I mean, I'm a big advocate of mushrooms. I partake in plenty of them. Where do you think? Because it seems like it's been a little harder to have people kind of sign on to the mushrooms.
Well, there's a theory out there, and I don't think it's a bad one, actually, that in the world you have mycophiles and mycophobes. And that myco is mushroom or fungus. And, obviously mycophiles are people who have a natural affinity for mushrooms. Mycophobes are people who don't. They're cautious about them. Mushrooms have a long history of being weird and strange, and most people know that there are lots of poisonous mushrooms. And
True.
In some cultures, the consumption of wild mushrooms is just like an all the time thing. You learn that, and in other cultures, not so much so. And I think that this kind of holds back the category a bit, although you have some, as you know, some fantastic advocates and advocate companies who have really helped to move this whole category forward. When I was in China, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago now, I was taken to the world's largest herbal market, which is in Beaujeu, about 850 miles west of Shanghai. And this is an 85-acre market. Okay. This is a big market. This is a really big market.
Really big.
Streets. And one of the things that impressed me was a lot of the vendors there had tonnage of mushrooms. tonnage of reishi mushrooms, tonnage of maitakes, tonnage of this stuff. Just monster truckloads, How much do you need? Half ton? Yeah, come back at 2. We'll get you loaded up. I mean, amazing. And that really caught my attention. It was a kind of a big wow, actually. I mean, I already knew about mushrooms. I knew a lot about the beta-glucans and some other things, but I was blown away by the presence that they had in the market. And then, of course, subsequently traveling around in the markets of Hong Kong, back when it was a more free territory, and other parts of China, you see mushrooms everywhere. And they're also integrated very, very well into Chinese cuisine. Again, they taste good, but also because they're health promoting. So I think that we don't have in this culture overall the same kind of long-term affinity for mushrooms. But I think thanks to people like, Paul Stamets and Jeff Chilton and others, we're getting there. I think the category has made great strides.
Yeah, I think so too. It's nice when you have those people that are not only putting the information out there, but really releasing, studies, and they're on top of it. And so there's just so much more accessible information for the people that may have been not quite, on board. And I've seen that over just like the last 10 years.
And the mix of people that we have in the natural product scene and the botanical scene is such that there are a lot of experts in different sectors. You've got some people who can really break down the chemistry for you and make it understandable, and other people who know methods of processing just brilliantly well. I spend a lot of my time in the field, so I know what happens out there in trade. Whether it's working conditions, whether it is, wages, what's happening in terms of global climate change and how that's affecting crops of all different kinds. We all have our different particular areas. And so, coalescing as a constantly changing, but somewhat enduring group of people, we manage to put out a lot of different types of information. And I think what happens is that as a result, we reach a lot of different people. You're going to reach some people more than I will based on their affinity for what you're offering. I'm going to reach certain people who really want to know much more about the field side. So I think we have a kind of a good communications activity, if you will, coalesced in our scene. And one of the reasons that people communicate about this, is we love this. We love the plants. We love the planet. We love nature. We want this to continue to thrive and prosper. And so we tend to be ardent in our, explaining this to others, or at least I do.
No, a lot of us do. No, we try. We really do try, because we make it a focus. Absolutely.
Right. Either, as somebody once said to me, either put your heart into it or get your ass out of it. It's really that simple.
I've heard that over the years.
Yeah.
And remember before you were talking a little bit back to your point about, ups and downs, and everybody goes through craziness every day. I have a friend that's 98 and she's been a vegetarian for like 80 years. And she's very wise. And this is what she's always said this. She goes, when you stop having ups and downs in your life, you're dead. So I try to keep that, on the back of my burner, because just hysterical. So, favorite country of travel? Place you always want to go back to?
Well, that is so hard,
I know it is. I know.
I mean, if there's a favorite place, it's probably the big island of Hawaii. That's
really?
Yeah. There's nothing like it on Earth. I've done a lot of work there with kava, a lot of work with some other plants, but I would say that. It's spectacular beyond belief, the Big Island. It just is. You've got remarkable coastline. You've got vast beaches. You've got some of the greatest hiking terrain into the Kohala Mountains of any place on Earth. cascading waterfalls by the dozens, 600 feet high, one after another, just going on for miles. It's an amazing place. But I have great fondness for Vanuatu, South Pacific, where I've worked over time since 1995 with Kava. Have deep, deep, deep friendships there. We firewalked there every year for years. We're deeply involved in villages in super remote islands that take days to get to. Also, I've worked in the Amazon like 35 times. So I have a great love and affection for the Amazon, mostly the Peruvian Amazon, although I lived for a couple of months with natives on the river in Brazil and have spent time in Ecuador and French Guyana. But the Amazon's a special place. I'm absolutely heartbroken that it's being cut down, burned down, chained down, bulldozed. It's inexcusable what's happening there. There are many places. I like Malaysia. I've worked in Malaysia a bunch. The Malaysian people are super friendly. The Aboriginal Orang Asli are some of the best people in a forest of anybody I've ever met. If anything I don't like about them is that they're tiny little people and they move much faster in the forest than I do.
Can't keep up.
They constantly stop to wait, There are a lot of places that I love, and much of it has to do with the people experiences. I mean, I get to go to these places because of plants, but it's the people experiences that are really the rich reward for me. When I was first living with natives in Brazil, we were going to see shamans, and we got to this 103-year-old shaman named Maria Sina, and she looked at me and she said, "You bridge the world." And she described to me how important it was for me to go to different places in the world and then tell other people about those people to foster understanding. And even though I'd been doing that for a few years at the time that I met her, I really took that to heart. And so that's become core to my work, to my communication, to my efforts, and also core to my love of different places.
Let me ask you a question. As some of these places you go to are far more desolate than we would consider rural, and you go there, is it ever uncomfortable at the very beginning? Because there's just I'm just wondering, all of a sudden you're there and it's like you're immersed in a completely different culture. And I try to live vicariously through your travels because I follow your post all the time and I'm like, wow, I don't know if I could do that.
Here's the truth. It's not for everybody. It really is.
True.
Yeah, it's often uncomfortable. It's often uncomfortable. I mean, I have a good shaman friend who I really like a lot. This woman who, invited me to take a little walk in the forest one day, and it turned into a 3-hour slog to the other side of the forest to the Amazon River. And then we got into a boat and we set off, and we endured 3 hours in pounding torrential cold rain in a t-shirt.
Oh my goodness.
That happens all the time. That's the thing. It happens all the time. The discomfort sometimes is really quite something, whether it's constant insect bites or very uncomfortable sleeping conditions or cramped and difficult transportation, very, very, very bad storms that imperil your life, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. But I have such love for it though, Jeffrey. And it has the feeling of adventure a lot of the time. And my wife and I laugh, very often you'll be with somebody in a vehicle in ever deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper mud, someplace, hours away from anywhere. And we'll sit there and go, what do you figure? Another minute? Yeah, not even. And then it'll get stuck. Oh, after the guy said, don't worry, I do this all the time. I mean, we've had this happen all over the world. And then you're stuck up to the doors and the car's not going anywhere because it's the first Toyota ever made and it has no traction, no tread on the tires and all that stuff. And you get out and you're like wicked stranded. This stuff happens. And if you're a person who freaks out at stuff like that, you would hate doing the work I do. You just have to have a good sense of humor and go, okay, well, this is pretty much as predicted. All right, well, let's see. How do we get out of here? Yep. So yes, there's often tremendous discomfort and then joyful, astonishing circumstances that arise that, I will cherish for the remainder of my days.
When I read your post and I follow your social media and you're posting on where you are and what you're doing, what comes through every single time, there's usually a picture so we can kind of feel the moment. But what comes through all the time is your extreme passion. And you couldn't change that if you wanted to, because it comes through even on a little paragraph that you write. Your passion comes through, and we're the benefiters of your passion because, we get the stories, we get the information, we get the actual ingredients, and it gives focus. So I'm going to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that. It's really the case that, you have to have your heart into it if you're going to do stuff like this. Otherwise, it would just be constant annoyance, I assure you.
I love it. People ask me all the time, and I know this is a crazy question, and people will say it all the time, but it's just kind of the mentality that's out there, and it just means it's an opening for a discussion. I take my vitamins every single day. How do I know if it's okay or whether I should introduce some herbs to my regimen? And I know it's a weird question.
It's
a quick thought.
It's pretty simple. I mean, you can think of them like good, healthy vegetables. I'm not kidding. Like it's nice to have a great salad with a lot of good, healthy stuff rather than say just clover sprouts or just cut up green peppers, And I don't mean to be overly simplistic, but these botanicals have been proven over thousands of years to be of great benefit. And so, look, if you have all the energy, endurance, and stamina and mental clarity and drive that you possibly could ever want, if you sleep like a hero every single night, and on and on and on, you don't have health problems, but then you clearly don't need the herbs. But I don't know that person.
I
don't know that person because we're all living in the real world. And these things help. And I think especially the adaptogens help, rhodiola, ashwagandha, eleuthero, panax, ginseng, schizandra, maca. These are titanic botanicals. And I don't mean that in the sinking ship way. I mean that in the matter of greatness. These do extraordinary things for you. And what happens a lot of the time is if people get hold of good products, they take them and at some point they go, I was skeptical about this, but I feel terrific. I feel terrific doing this. And it's how you want your experience to be. There's no harm in trying good herbal products. There's none whatsoever. And you might find that whatever life you're living is significantly enhanced as a result.
I love that. Thank you. I think the reason that I've loved this industry so long and all my friends are retiring and I can't even imagine, because I want to know what's next. I always want to know what's new. I don't want to be left out. I don't want to leave the industry and then have something come in that I've been waiting for something to come my way, and that it's a passion as well, and I love what I do and I love being able to pass information on. That's kind of what I've done, for such a long, long time and been able to kind of bridge, confusion with understanding and education and knowledge and making it comfortable because you can teach in a very easy way without overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
And you can also, and because sometimes, I go to some lectures sometimes and I'm watching the audience, they're glazing over and I'm like, bring it down a little bit. Because you're losing everybody. It doesn't have to be like that. It could be understandable and rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. People want, and you hit it right on the nail. People want to know that the science is there, but they most of the time don't want to know the science, because that's just not like we make careers of this.
Yes.
But not everybody else does. And they really do want the Cliff Notes version. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I just want a toaster that works. Okay. I don't want to have to learn to build one. I don't want to read endless books about toasters. I just want one that plugs in. I put a piece of bread in it. It makes toast. Okay. And I think realistically, we, while it's wonderful that we have experts in this field who can address thousands of important issues, we do need to respect that most people want assurance. And once you give them that assurance, then, okay, so what's interesting? What's good for me? I don't sleep well. Well, have you tried whatever it is? Have you tried ashwagandha? Have you tried theanine? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And informing them so that they understand these things are real. As an educator, as somebody who puts out constant messages, you get to do this. And I think in a kind of a bite-sized way. You don't want to eat the whole big thing at one sitting. I've been in Morocco a lot. And at some point, my friends and I will get driven way out into the desert in the Atlas Mountains to some lonely place, low mud hut. And there somebody will have cooked an entire lamb. And sorry for all the vegans out there, but, and you sit down at a table and they bring this entire lamb in on basically a board, and they set it down in front of you. They give you a cloth for your hands, a little bowl of salt and cumin and some water, or tea rather. And they're like, bye. And you've got this giant, this lamb to eat with your hands.
I love it.
Obviously, you can't do it. You can only go so far. And I think that may be a little bit of a weird analogy, but, you can't eat the whole thing of science all at once. And we have a responsibility to dole it out and the information in ways that people can remember the things that are pertinent to their lives and that make a difference to them, and not just be hopelessly overwhelmed by blah, blah, blah about the cytochrome P450 enzyme system. Give me a break. You ever have those people in a seminar, they ask you a question that's really their own lecture on something?
Yes.
It's like, what's the question here?
No, I agree. I appreciate that. I really do. And it just makes sense. I mean, we're overwhelmed every day and we don't need any more. But if we can use something that makes our life better and healthier and more productive, and we sleep better and we deal with our stress better and we decompress, we do some good things like we eat a little better, we drink better water.
Right.
We're going to be better for it.
We are going to be better for it. And let's face it, life is challenging. No matter who you are. Obviously, it's much more challenging for people who don't get their basic needs met. And I run into loads of those around the world. I work in impoverished areas a lot and see devastating ways that people live. But if we have the comforts, the basic comforts, then really it's a matter of what can we learn to enhance our lives? And in the case of you and me, what can we do to enhance the lives of others? If that basic notion of service is a kind of a pole star, a navigational pole star as we go along, that means that a lot of people are going to benefit. And, I love it. I'll be at a convention and somebody will come up to me and say, 20 years ago, you told me to do blah, blah, blah. And I'll go, really? Because I don't remember that. And they'll say, and I did that, and here's what happened. And it's usually something wonderful and positive. Nobody comes up to me and says, you ruined my life, thankfully. But, it's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing. It shows that, people do listen, people do care, and that healthy messages, positive messages, growth-oriented messages have a wonderful place in people's lives.
The thing I love about radio and now podcasting is you get to see a portion of the people and hear from them and the ones who you help change their world and inform them.
Mhm.
But you always never know all of the people that are getting the benefits, and you may never, but you know that you are changing lives. And I think that's my driving force.
Well, yeah, and a wonderful driving force. I grew up in radio and TV. My mom was talent on air, and I got pulled into TV and radio when I was a little kid. And I loved going to the station with my mom. It was just the best thing. It's like, you want to go to the station? Yeah, I want to go to the station. Whatever else was going on. Yeah, absolutely. I want to sit with Frank, the engineer, and he'll let me pull levers and turn dials and shit. Wow.
I love it though. I mean, that's great. There's a passion there, and I think we were meant to do what we're meant to do, and and if you love it, that even makes it better.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for this today. I've been really looking forward to this, and I'm so glad I ran into you at Expo, and I finally got everything going and clicking, and it's great to have you here. Before I let you go, would you leave everyone with a thought for the day? It could be a thought on anything, but maybe something they could remember you by your thought of the day.
Do good and forget it.
Ooh. Oh, I want to use that. I love that. Thank you so much. You guys, thank you for tuning in today. Chris Kilham, make sure that you do follow him on social media. His posts are fantastic. He's passionate, energetic, and just so wonderful to do all he does. He travels the world and gets all the information so we don't have to. But we get the benefits of all of that. So if you're tuning in for the first time, thank you for being here. If you're back again, welcome back. Remember, it's the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. You can go to my webpage, drjeffreyburke.com. Send your friends there. If they click on the Honest Health logo, it'll take them to Spotify. If they click on the YouTube, they'll be able to see the interview. I want to thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Be well, and God bless.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.